My girlfriend announced, "I'm starting an OnlyFans. It's my body, my choice, and you'll support me." I replied, "Absolutely." Then I sent screenshots of her profile to her ultra-conservative parents and her employer when both called her during her first live stream. I know that sounds insane. I know it sounds vindictive and petty and dramatic, and trust me, when I replay those 5 seconds in my head, the moment my thumb hit send, I feel that same punch of disbelief every time. But this situation didn't come out of nowhere. It was a final collapse of months of tension, manipulation, cross boundaries, and emotional whiplash. And by the time I got to that breaking point, it honestly felt like I was just watching someone else steer the wreck. The crazy part is that I didn't even want to be in that position. I didn't want to ruin anything. I didn't want revenge. I wanted my girlfriend, the woman I've been planning a future with, to actually talk to me before doing something she knew would shatter everything we'd built. But Madison never did anything quietly. She loved shock value like oxygen, and I was tired of drowning in it. The entire mess started about 10 months ago, around the time her brother got engaged. His fiancée was one of those effortlessly perfect people, kind, organized, always smiling without seeming fake, and Madison spiraled hard. She suddenly felt overshadowed, like she was fading into the background, and she let that insecurity slither into every corner of our relationship. I tried to be supportive. I really did. I told her she didn't need to compete with anyone, that she was enough, that she was interesting and talented and beautiful without having to claw for attention. But Madison thrived on external validation, the way some people thrive on caffeine. If someone wasn't paying attention to her, she would burn the house down just to make them look. And in the months before this all blew up, I watched her slowly set the matches out in a row. It started with little things. Pictures that were increasingly risque, captions fishing for compliments, subtle digs at my supposed lack of support whenever I suggested healthier outlets. Then it escalated. She began talking nonstop about empowerment, reclaiming her body, feeling constrained by expectations, how the world held women to unfair standards. And she wasn't wrong. I supported actual empowerment. The issue was that she wielded that language like a weapon to shut down any concern I had, even when the concern was reasonable. If I said, "Hey, can we talk about boundaries?" she'd say, "You're trying to control me." If I said, "Can we think this through?" she'd accuse me of being insecure. Eventually, I realized that you can't have a rational conversation with someone who treats honesty as an attack. The tension burst one night when she came home vibrating with excitement, like she won the lottery or discovered a hidden superpower. She threw her bag down, grabbed my shoulders, and said exactly what ended up becoming the opening line of the story. "I'm starting an OnlyFans. It's my body, my choice, and you'll support me." Not asked, not discussed, not even framed in a way where I could respond like a partner. No, this was a declaration, a mandate, a command masked as empowerment. I remember looking at her, searching her face for even a flicker of understanding about how huge this was, but all I saw was adrenaline. She had already made the decision. My role was to clap. And here's the thing, I wasn't morally opposed to OnlyFans. Plenty of healthy couples navigate that world together. I don't judge. The problem was the total lack of conversation. The expectation that I would simply applaud something that would absolutely affect our relationship. The certainty with which she dismissed my feelings before I even said a word. I opened my mouth to try anyway, but she cut me off with a raised hand, literally raised her hand like she was silencing a child, and said, "If you say anything other than, 'I support you,' then you're proving you're just like everyone else trying to control women's bodies." That moment changed everything, because I realized then that Madison didn't want a partner. She wanted a mirror that reflected back whatever narrative made her feel righteous. I told her absolutely, only because I knew nothing I said would matter. I wasn't agreeing. I was surrendering. But she wasn't listening closely enough to notice the difference. Fast forward 2 nights later. Her first live stream. She spent the afternoon pacing around the apartment, hyping herself up. She did her hair, did her makeup, set up the ring light, rehearsed her intro about empowerment and independence like she was preparing for a TED Talk instead of a soft-launch lingerie show. And again, if she had actually cared about my comfort, if she had even said, "Can we talk about how this feels?" I probably would have handled everything differently, but she didn't. She spent the entire evening telling me I should be proud of her, that her starting this account proved she wasn't afraid, that her family would eventually get over their outdated values and be forced to accept her choices, that if her job had a problem, that was on them. And the whole time she spoke, she didn't look at me. Not once. It was like I wasn't even there. So when she hit go live and her phone immediately buzzed with notifications, comments, tips, new subscribers, it was the first time I'd seen her truly happy in weeks. But the longer I watched, the more I realized I wasn't part of her happiness at all. I was a prop, a silent witness, a placeholder filling space while she performed liberation to an audience of strangers. She posed, giggled, talked about breaking free from oppression, and somewhere in that moment I hit my limit. I didn't shout. I didn't confront her. I didn't make a scene. I simply stepped into the other room, scrolled through the photos she'd posted earlier that day, the ones she'd sworn weren't even that revealing, and sent them to her parents and to her boss at the insurance agency where she worked. It wasn't revenge. It was collapse. A total emotional crash of trying to be heard for months and realizing the only language she responded to was shock. Both her parents and her employer called within minutes. I watched Madison's face shift from flirtatious confidence to pure panic as the phone lit up with her dad's name, then her mom's, then her manager's. She fumbled mid-sentence on the stream, excused herself, turned the camera off, and stared at me like she was seeing a stranger. And the thing is, she still didn't ask why I did it. She just screamed, "How could you?" over and over, as if everything leading to that moment was irrelevant, as if the decision she forced on us was a pebble, and my reaction was the earthquake. She cried, accusing me of humiliating her. I told her I just mirrored back what she told me, that she didn't care what her family or job thought, that this was about her independence, that my feelings didn't matter. For the first time in months, she stopped talking. She just looked at me, stunned, like maybe she finally realized I was an accessory in her liberation narrative. I was a human being she'd bulldozed. She packed a bag, called her brother, and left. I didn't try to stop her. I was too emotionally empty to even pretend. The fallout wasn't pretty. Her parents demanded she come home and drag her through a guilt-trip marathon worthy of an Olympic medal. Her job suspended her pending professional conduct review. Her brother confronted me, calling me vindictive and small-minded. I didn't defend myself. I didn't argue. I let everyone say whatever they needed to because, for once, I didn't feel responsible for managing Madison's chaos. The weirdest part is that afterward, I expected to feel triumphant or relieved or something dramatic. But what I actually felt was quiet. A strange, steady quiet. The kind you feel when a hurricane finally passes, and you realize the house is still standing, but you're too exhausted to celebrate. Madison eventually texted me weeks later. Not an apology, not a conversation. Just, "I hope you're happy. You destroyed everything." I stared at the message for a long time before replying. "You destroyed it when you stopped treating me like a partner." She didn't respond. Life settled into normalcy again, painfully slow at first, then surprisingly peaceful. And I realized the entire relationship had been a balancing act on a tightrope. She kept shaking. The end didn't feel like a loss. It felt like solid ground. People online would probably argue about whether I was right or wrong, whether I went too far, whether there were better options. Maybe they're right. Maybe I could have handled it differently. But I don't regret it. Not because I think what I did was noble or justified or mature. I don't pretend it was. I regret the situation that pushed me there, but not the moment of clarity that followed. Because the truth is, sometimes relationships don't end with a quiet conversation or a gentle fade out. Sometimes they end with one final, sharp moment that forces both people to see all the cracks they've been ignoring. And for us, that moment just happened to involve a ring light, an OnlyFans account, and 2 phone calls that changed everything in the span of a single minute. In the end, I didn't win anything. But I finally stopped losing myself.